Good afternoon to Bermuda's News and Views. I'm your host, Don Burgess, here at the House Bermuda, and today's topic is on education. We're a little bit late today with a few technical difficulties, but we're ready to talk about this interesting and very important topic for Bermuda's future. Our panelists today are Tamisha Darrow. Tamisha, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your involvement with education?
I have had the privilege of being an educator for 17 years, served in many different capacities in regards to committees and other organizations. My passion has always been these pumpkins. Everything that I do has centered around what I think is in the best interest of children. So that's how I've lent my talents in this noble profession.
Taking our center seat today is Ellen Kate Horton, who's very familiar to a lot of people, whose family's very involved with education with Robert and Randy. I know her from softball. We share a passion and a love for that. Welcome, Ellen Kate. Give us a little bit of your resume and your love for education.
Okay, thank you. I started teaching immediately after university and taught at Warwick Secondary School. From there, I was involved with the union at the same time. I then moved on, after the birth of my daughter, spent a year at the Berkeley before moving abroad to Canada, where I worked, and returned to Bermuda when she was ready for university. And that would have been 2001. I taught at Cedar Bridge Academy. Wonderful time there. From there, education officer for mathematics, on to HR for the Department of Education. Then became a permanent secretary. I held several different positions in permanent secretary, several different ministries, including education. I retired in 2012 from the Ministry of Transport. And what is really good is I returned to the classroom and taught at Clearwater Middle, had a wonderful experience there. Then for 2 years I was attached to the Berkeley. The second year I was full-time. The first year at the Berkeley I dealt with children who for one reason or another could not be in the building. And then on to a full-time mathematics at the Berkeley. Right now, I am at teaching out of the reading clinic. Little pumpkins this time, real little ones.
But you also hold an interesting perspective because you were also involved with the BUT.
Yes, I was president of the BUT. I was also the BUT's, it was a BUT at the time. But I was also the first organizer. And that came about merely because I had been, at that time, chief negotiator. And once we had won that position, nobody was willing to take it. The person had to come out of the classroom, and I thought, somebody has to do this. So I ended up doing that. Enjoyed it. And
so we appreciate having your perspective because now you've served at the ministry and as a permanent secretary position and work representing the teachers.
Yes.
And certainly not our final guest today, but Miss Richleen Woolridge who's got children in the school system.
Yes. Well, my resume is not as extensive as Miss Horton's, but
you're not as old.
My name is Richleen Woolridge. I'm actually a proud parent of 4. With ages of 17 to 29. They've all gone through the public education system, and so that's my contribution to today as a very proud parent of my 4 lovely children.
All right, thank you. Now, there's a lot of, we've had a lot of situation over the last couple years or so, people not happy with one thing or another, but what's going right with our education system? Let's start from there.
Can I just dispel the idea, or attempt to dispel the idea that we're not doing a good job in public education? Yes. I think we tend to believe that private is the be-all end-all, but we haven't really looked into what's happening there as well.
Yes.
And I think of going to the airport at Christmas time and watching the number of little people getting off the plane. You know, so when some children don't do well in their schools, they're sent abroad. So I'd first like to dispel the idea that we are not doing a good job, because I do believe that many of them, and she can attest to it, I mean, she has children, one I know extremely well, and they've done very well in our system. And, you know, we've got those teachers who can push them through.
I definitely agree.
Yeah.
I think sometimes because we operate in such a small island and country, I always call it the grocery store situation. Yeah. You stop by a particular item in the grocery store, you meet someone, they have a negative comment to make, and then that negative comment morphs into other things. And I really think that public education has been given a bad rap in this country when you're comparing it to private education, because public education is a comprehensive system in which we do not discriminate as to who we allow to walk through our doors. Yeah. And I can just speak for myself and my colleagues that I know on a daily basis, they do their absolute best to make a difference in the life of children and not pre-selecting who walks through the doors. I think it's kind of disingenuous when people try to compare public to private. It's like apples and oranges.
Yes,
the students' experiences are different. You know, when you are paying for an education for someone, a lot of parents see that as a direct investment. So a lot of times you get more parental support in regards to that. I believe that there's some awesome students that are in BPSS, teachers that are really working diligently and hard. And I just think that if we had the collective support of everyone in Bermuda when it comes to public education, it will reap dividends. So the amount of energy we put into seeing how negative it is, if we can use our energies to talk about bolstering public education, that's where we should be.
Can I just make a comment before she does with respect to something that was said just now? I have an example. When I was a teacher at Warwick Secondary, I had a little girl come in one day devastated because she had the wrong shoes on. And you know, those days, hey, you wore your right shoes to school. The interesting thing, and I recall holding that little girl in my arms. She was not so little, but still, you know, those children came in at that time at age 11, 12. She was devastated because she had the wrong shoes on. You know why? Because her sister, who was at Work Academy, her shoes broke. Her mother would not write a note to Work Academy to talk about the shoes. So she swapped shoes, and our little girl had to wear something different. So that sends a terrible message. And it also sends a message that that school is more important than the school where you are. So, you know, we are sometimes masters of our own demise. You know, it's very unfortunate.
Yeah, and it is unfortunate. No, it's fine. It's unfortunate that the negative is amplified because, like the lady said, the public education system turns out a lot of well-educated, positive students and adults. I'm a big advocate for public school education. Like I said, all 4 of my children went through the public school system. I currently have a son who is a chef. I have one daughter at Bermuda College, and I have my other daughter is in the dual enrollment program at Bermuda College as well. And so, you know, they didn't go, like we said, they didn't go to private school. They went to public school. You have doctors and you have pilots that come out of Cedar Bridge Academy coming out of public school system, and that we need to talk about more than what's wrong with our education system.
Part of the thing is I wanted to talk about the dual enrollment system, which has now been in place for several years, you know, giving some of our secondary students an opportunity to be challenged and go to Bermuda College and get things. But one interesting thing that I found out a couple weeks ago when I did a story about Delwood, and they're getting a van, and part of the use of that van is to take some of their middle school students up to Cedar Bridge to take some math and English classes up there so that they can too to be challenged. Why is this so important in our system?
Well, you know, we certainly did that in-house at Clearwater Middle. You know, our excellent students, I taught M2 at Clearwater Middle, and those babies showed up at 7:30 in the morning.
Every morning.
Every morning. And we
And
did.
weekends.
Yes, because our class, everybody in that classroom is of mixed ability. And because these children were so far advanced, I did some work with them separately. 7:30 in the morning, those babies showed up. And when we first talked about it, they said, 7:30, Miss Orton? I said, coming from Somerset. Yeah, quiet. They were fine, and they showed up 7:30. And not only that, so they didn't have to, we weren't in a position to take children to Cedar Bridge or the Berkeley. We're too far away.
Yeah.
But we did that in-house. And those children in M2 passed that exam.
Yes.
5 of the 10 passed very well with the top grade they could have gotten.
Yes, that's correct.
So, you know, I'm very proud of those children. And that experience was second to none. I see those babies now, I still get a hug.
Yeah. And when they left the middle school, they went into Cedar Bridge and Berkeley directly into S2 because they had already completed their IGCSEs and passed that math exam.
Right, so this is helping them, giving a leg up.
Yes,
Yes,
it is actually.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So there are numerous programs for the middle school children and the senior school children in public school.
Yes.
Yeah, which, as a parent, what's the experience that you're finding with your daughter going up to Bermuda College?
Well, with this particular daughter, Mrs. Horton taught her. She was one of those students that were the top students and went to
Yes, she
Cedar Bridge.
was.
But the experience is actually awesome. She wants to be an actuary. So for me, she'll get 2 years of free college education. She'll have her associates when she leaves Bermuda College, and she'll go straight into uni in the UK. So for me, it's been an enlightening experience because we didn't have those opportunities when I was in school all those number of years ago. And she's actually enjoying the experience. And I can say that initially I was a bit concerned because going to Bermuda College at 16 and being with students that are 18, 20 years old, I was concerned about the experience that she would have from that perspective because they were a bit more mature than she was. But she has enjoyed the experience. She's now doing economics, she's doing accounting, she's doing business classes, all to get her to reach her goal. And 2 years of free education again for me.
Wonderful, wonderful.
One of the things when the PLP came to government, one of the first things that they announced was they set aside a set of funds for kids to go to Bermuda College for free. And then they've also announced this last year free Bermuda College tuition for those students with a GPA of 3.0. Dennis, do you have that slide for us? The government previously announced that, I quote, government will introduce a merit-based college promise program for Bermudian students graduating from public high school with a GPA of at least 3.0 to attend Bermuda College. Tuition free. The College Promise Initiative will incentivize college attainment by rewarding students with financial support to attend Bermuda College. You know, I'm not a parent, but I can imagine like 2 years of free college education. That's a lot of money that you're not having to pay.
So I also have, my oldest daughter is at Bermuda College, and she is participating in the free college admission. She's also working at the Bermuda College in the library just as a part-time member. So she is also being educated for free for the next 2 years. So yeah, so thank you to the government for that one.
Awesome.
And I just wanted to say that I also have relatives who can now take advantage of that, who without that opportunity wouldn't have been able to do that.
Right.
So I think that type of commitment into tertiary education is to be celebrated because it provides access, and that's really what it's about as a country. When you're trying to move a country forward, is how do you give people access through education so that when they're older they can make meaningful contributions. And I see that as an opportunity for people to be able to take advantage of, to hopefully as a result of that direct investment making a meaningful contribution to Bermuda later on.
I think part of the thing too is like it helps set, you know, the children that have been in public school, that they haven't had the parents have either decided not to send them to private school or don't have the financial means to send them to private school. And government's trying to level the playing field a bit by creating an opportunity for kids to achieve everything that they can, because we've known from the past, some kids have fallen through the cracks, and when they fall through the cracks, then that creates problems later on in life. But whereas an educated child, especially one with a college education, will help make all of Bermuda better.
Yeah.
Of course, there are many of us who choose not to go to private
Yes,
school.
and I was going to say that actually. I chose not to
Yes.
send my daughter to private school.
Sure.
She actually was, I guess you can say, accepted into Work Academy, and I chose to send her to Cedar Bridge Academy.
Right. And that's a belief in the system.
And that's a belief in the public education system, yes.
Yes.
Now, Tamisha, I see on your Facebook page you do a lot of really positive posts encouraging teachers or about education. Why do you do that?
I definitely think that the title of educator is a privilege, not a right. I do not take it for granted. I try not to squander my responsibility, and I try to be an advocate. Education is a challenge, not just Bermuda, but being an educator, period. It's a challenge because you have so many now societal ills that creep into your classroom. Yes. It's the pressures and the demands, and I don't think that Bermuda, to be quite honest, is any different from other educational jurisdictions. But I just try to constantly affirm my colleagues. Some days are better than others. I believe in the collective. I believe in support and unity. So I kind of use that as a platform to say, today might be a challenge, but I say it all the time to my colleagues, you today might absolutely be their best hope. So be their best hope. Yes. They might need to rent your hope until they have their own. And so I take education very seriously and advocate for it all the time. So yeah, that's the person that I would always be, the consummate educator, the teacher, the cheerleader around this most noble profession. I remember when I was 3 years old, and my mom would tell me the story of me lining my dolls up and teaching them, and beckoning her from the kitchen so that she can be taught by me as well. And this is what I was created to do, and I absolutely love it, and I choose not to squander this opportunity that I have. So that's why I do. It's very idealistic. Yes. I understand that, but I absolutely love what I do, and so yeah, it's who I am. It was what I was created to do.
That's wonderful.
Yes. I will declare my public interest. I was a middle school teacher out in California for 9 years, and dealt with that wonderful age where they're all going through their hormones and finding out a bit who they are. But government has advocated in their election manifesto that they were going to do away with middle schools and replace it with secondary schools along with special signature schools. And Dennis, if you can cut to that. The PLP election platform said, and I quote, "Reform public education by phasing out of middle schools and introducing signature schools at the secondary level, which focus on the learning styles and interests of our children, including academic, technical, and the trades, business, sports, arts, and special needs education." What does the panel think out phasing out middle schools? Is an experiment gone wrong, or?
I think, first of all, I'm concerned that much of what happens to education is political. Perhaps that was to win votes, I don't know. But I do believe that when I ask the question, I'm told that's what we heard on the doorstep. Well, there's sometimes we hear things on the doorstep when we should really correct it, because what we're saying is that public education is a mess. I'm disagreeing with that. I certainly believe middle school has had its place for us. Those of us who have been there know it. I think it would be foolhardily to move anything without having data. So I want to know where the data is that proves that middle school is the problem. If you look, our schools are a microcosm of our society. We just need to look out here and see what's happening. We need to fix a whole lot in society. And it's not an easy fix. But I do believe that channeling children too early is a problem. Because when a child, what has happened, especially to the black community throughout the world, we look for the lowest common denominator, you know, for these children. So they are channeled away from top academics often, and boys especially take a longer time to mature. Many boys, I don't say all, but many. And so they should have the opportunity for a change of mind along the way. I just believe that there are some excellent things going on at the middle level. There are certainly some problems, but that much of what goes on in the school happens to depend on those of us who stand in front of our children. And I mean, we have some excellent teachers in our system. We have some not so excellent. And we really have to have the will to say, you know what, this is not for you. We lose jobs in other areas. But I do believe that every child has the ability to learn. And quite frankly, there are so many people who have gone through middle and done well. We look at, I think one of the things that's being looked at is the fact that the enrollment at private schools seems to go up just before that middle level comes in. It's a matter of no belief, I believe, but the enrollment at private school goes down at the secondary level. Doesn't necessarily mean they come back to us. They may be going off somewhere else because there is some other problem. So I'm not a believer that we need to put, you know, during the day of the middle schools, we had, during the day before the middle schools, we had children choosing, making a choice, 1 to 6, to get into secondary school. 1 to 6 meant 1 was your best choice, down to 6 your in essence last choice. Many children didn't even get 6, ended up just being sent somewhere.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
Think of what we did to those children.
Yes.
I believe that is part and parcel of some of the problems we have today. So we needed to change that system. We needed to change it. We can't tell little people at age 11 that, oh, you're not worthy, so here's where you're going.
Yeah. And I was part of that system back then of was it stay nines, and you had to, if you had a 7 or 7-7 or whatever, you got to a specific school. And today you would still be considered to be more less educated than the others because you didn't make the top schools. So you're right, it does do something to a person's morals, or not even morals, their self-esteem, their sense of self and sense of worth when you segregate them in that way. So I mean, and going back to what you said, Ms. Horton, you know, without the data, for me, I can't make an informed decision without data to say, well, the middle school is better than any other type of system. But I do believe that with parental involvement, no matter what system you create, the child will excel.
That's right.
Right? So you're going to have some top flyers, you're going to have those mediums, but they will all excel to where they need to be with you had parent involvement. You can't expect the government to do everything. You can't expect a certain system of the school system, I should say, to do everything for you. You have to have the parent involvement. I think that's key.
Yeah. I think, like, as an educator myself, I've seen those surveys, and they said that the #1 predictor of success for students is parental involvement.
Yeah. Yes.
So, you know,
It's one of the indicators.
It is.
I was just gonna, I'm not gonna jump into the middle school fray in that way as far as what decisions are made. I will say, you was talking about parental involvement. I would also say that currently there are some middle school teachers that are excellent at what they do. I was at a school recently and it was late at night. It was about 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, and those teachers were still there preparing for the students. So whether they were in middle school or there was a structural behavioral change, you would still have people that are just teachers that are just as committed. You know, so it's I don't know if it's about structure change. I'm not here to make comment on that. I would just say that it's the educators that are in front of these students that make the world of difference. And if our energies were focused on just making sure that they were as good as they could be, then no matter where they are, we would reap the dividends of that.
Much has to do with our expectations of our children. And we have to let our children know that we expect them to do well. And as long as you do that, these children will try. They will achieve.
They will achieve.
You know.
Definitely.
Now, I don't know if this is true in Bermuda, but I know like when I was growing up, my parents took me out of here and we went to California, and I went to a middle school. But it seemed like, just observing as a student, that the teachers at the middle school, I don't know if this is true for Bermuda, but like they were either young and waiting to get promoted up to the high school, or they weren't considered good enough to teach at the high school, so they got stuck at the middle school. So that's not the
no. I mean, you have teachers that are specialists in specific areas, and also really good at developmentally engaging with adolescents. So I don't think that it's a matter of them wanting to move from waiting to be promoted to high school. But I think it's a level of, this is the content area in which I work, and these are the type of students or year levels in which I work best. So it's a little different.
Being a middle school teacher, you
gotta be awesome. You gotta be rocking it out. Absolutely.
I think also we have to consider that we probably needed to train people at different levels before, but I think that one of the things we really have to consider if we're going to have all these secondary schools is how we're going to staff them. I happen to know without a doubt that we don't have teachers of mathematics. You know, I taught at the Berkeley. I was the one Bermudian. There was one other who moved on, but I was the one Bermudian. I think of mathematics at Cedar Bridge Academy, very few Bermudians. So at the secondary level, teachers of mathematics is a problem for Bermudians. Teachers of mathematics, science teachers, language teachers, these are problems for us. So unless we plan on the front end, and I'm going to say that we need to up the salary a little bit, so that, and that would be a good way to put money into education, so that we can get the best and the brightest in front of our children. So they're doing powerful mathematics, doing all these things that can help our children forward. But right now, if you're good at mathematics, you tend to say, hey, just like your daughter, let me go into actual science.
Big bucks?
Big bucks. You know, what if we could get big bucks in education? Just an idea. You know, if we raise this level, we're saying, as some countries like Sweden do, and Finland does for sure, their educators are paid extremely well. And, but you've got to be the best and the brightest to get into education. So they stream from the top schools, top universities, top students, and they're able to put them in front of their children. And those children in their classes are of mixed ability. All children, but I mean, it takes buy-in from the community. And as long as we are in charge and we say, oh, this group is not doing so well, so we're going to change this or change that, change causes so much disruption, you know.
Yeah. Not that it's any time in next year or something.
Right.
But like, if they did do away with the middle schools and they went to high schools, from what I'm hearing from you is like, don't make students rank what school that they want to go to, because then we have X school might be labeled as the best and Y school might be labeled as the worst, and then students feel bad that they're going to Y.
Sure, because you stop and think back in the day, Berkeley was the only academic school for black children, high school, the only one. The whites had many, maybe 5 or 6. We just didn't. So either you went to Berkeley, no, Tech was what was called, you know, we had a 3-tier system when we were, back then, when we had Berkeley, then we had Tech and Hart Academy for a moment, and then we started building all these other schools for black children. Meanwhile, the government of the day was putting its money into schools. Well, we got inferior schools. And so, I mean, it was by design, I believe. But, you know, we have weathered the storm. And I don't want us to go back there with our little people.
Right. So it'd be better, like, if you were in Somerset, you went to Sands or whatever the middle school or the secondary school is for that area, rather than choosing to go to whatever it might be called.
Right. I don't think yeah, but if you're going to have signature schools as mentioned, the school in Sands might be like, if it's a music school, I have no musical talent, none. So you can't send me to that school, even though I am from Sands. So then we have problems as to, I don't know if we've really thought this through. So we have to think about the numbers of children who end up here, there. You know, how can we plan like that? I don't know.
Former West Pembroke PTSA President Danielle Riviere seemed to echo the overhaul comment from government when she said it's time to change the conversation how to fix the system to how to replace it. Is that a step too far? Is our education system beyond repair?
Definitely not.
No, definitely not.
Definitely not.
No.
No.
So it's just minor tweaks that we need to...
I think so. No. I think we could fix what we have. You know, we're going to put these same teachers in front of our children, no matter what the system is. So as long as we're using the same people, you're going to get the same results. And you know, there are some awesome teachers, I'm going to tell you. I think of primary level, I'm just in awe. I've been to a couple of primary schools, and I think of Mrs. Ming down at Harrington Sound.
Right.
I think of Ms. Dill over at Gilbert Institute. I think of, what's her name? These are just a few people that I know who are doing such a wonderful job. And I know there are many others. I don't know them, I don't have to know them, but there are many others throughout our system in primary, middle, and secondary who are doing a great job.
And we need to celebrate them.
Yes,
yeah,
we do.
We need to celebrate them more, and I think we need to sort of stop with so much negativity and negative comments towards the teachers and the education system, because the teachers are doing an excellent job in the system.
Now this can probably be a little bit controversial because, LK, you did mention that some teachers, most of our teachers are excellent. I just want to state most of our teachers are excellent and of a high standard, but the ones that maybe aren't up to the minimum bar level, what do we need to do to raise, first of all, try to raise them to the bar level, and if it can't be done, what needs to happen?
You know, I think we have expertise around the island who could assist if we would accept assistance. Yeah. Certainly, there are many of us who are retired, who still have minds intact, still able to assist. You know, in other countries, they tenure people like us and get you to continue helping. And I not only speak of myself, I'm just talking of many people around here who could still assist. And I think we need all hands on deck. And if we have decided that there's a problem, pull in these hands. Let's do a reach out. And maybe everybody doesn't feel like it or doesn't want to, but I can assure you there are lots of people who would come in and assist with classroom management, with things of that sort, if people have those problems. Even with content knowledge, you know, we can always you know, assist. We can always find people who can assist.
And I think in addition to that, professional development.
Yes.
And you started off by saying, you know, how about these teachers that are not good? I just wanted to be clear that in any organization, you have people that are not performing in the way that they should. That's in public school and private school. And I think even when we begin to form the narrative around public school, it's always, as she's alluded to earlier, in a negative way.
Yes.
There are a lot of positive things happening, but in reference to improving when it comes to the teaching practices, then just like any other organization, you would try to re-professionalize or provide professional development opportunities for people to grow. They do it in private school. It's not unusual. It's something that we do in public school as well. So you know, it's just how you frame the narrative around. If you're coming from a deficit mentality, when you think of public school, and I know I do want to come from a very positive stance, because it is going to take all hands on deck. And if we use a lot of our energies in the wrong place, just talking about all of the negative things and not trying to be solution oriented, because these kids are our future. They are going to inherit this country, and we need them to be in a good place and so that they can take care of us. So I think that yes, reaching out to former teachers is very, very important, but I also think working with what you have now and developing them in areas that they need to be better developed in will build as well as
Now, mind you, I don't mean take over the classroom. I'm talking about assisting
from a coaching perspective, coaching the teachers.
working together.
I think maybe a lot of the public doesn't know, but teachers are one of the few professions in Bermuda that have to have a lot of PD.
That's right.
Is it 50 hours?
It's different for how we're structured. So for teachers, it's a certain amount. For substitutes, it's a different amount for paraprofessionals.
But I think it's 50 over 2 years.
For teachers,
and then 40 for the substitutes, which is still quite a bit. So like even the ones that are coming in on a take care basis for, you know, whereas a lot of other professions, they don't even have any standards, but the teachers are still getting, you know, still staying up. They're still getting training and staying current every year after year.
Oh yes.
But then the curriculum changes as well, so you have to stay current. You have to stay. I guess professional development has to be key as well, because you even get that in private sector. Not everyone's going to be a top flyer, right? But then you have coaching and you have developing and additional training for those people as well to bring them up to that level.
Now I understand, well, completely understand Tamisha and Richleen avoiding this next topic, but the standards-based grading, there's been a lot of concerns, a lot of back and forth between the ministry and the BUT. Recently, the BUT said standards-based grading concerns were initially expressed in a joint meeting with the Department of Education early last year, and ongoing meetings have continued. However, the expectations, as mentioned in the letter, have caused members much uneasiness. Members' concerns included the lack of proficiency scales, lack of adequate training, an inappropriate grading system, and a lack of key understandings about the principles and practices of standard-based grading. So it seems like a struggle. Maybe some of the parents don't understand what standard-based grading is, and you know why we're trying to move to, or why the ministry is trying to move to this system.
I think most importantly, this should not have played out in the public. That is a big concern for me. We want to fight all of our battles in front of everybody. And I think that we could have done without that. I was very concerned about seeing the word fake grades written in the release. Disappointed. And I do believe that the actual standards-based grading might be a good thing when I think about what it really is, because it gives those children the opportunity to reach excellence without moving on. So, you know, if it takes a person 3 tries to get to this level, then give them that opportunity. And I understand this young lady here is training, is a trainer for it, And I'm glad to hear that there is someone really dedicated to training those people in standard-based grading. But I don't think it's I've talked to principals, I've talked to teachers when all of this came to the fore, because first of all, these are my children. This is my school system. You know, I take ownership as a Bermudian and as a former educator. No, I shouldn't say former. As an educator, it means a lot to me that our children achieve. And I do believe that if we are trained, then, and if we are in training, then we're capable of getting there. I'm just sorry that it played out in public.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that I want to dispel the idea that any educator is going to give fake grades.
Yeah, that's so true.
Richleen, we started late. It's about 1. I know you have to leave. Is there anything that you want to say, sort of like your final thoughts on what you think about the education system?
And like I said earlier, I just want to reiterate that I am a firm supporter of the public education system. I believe that there is a lot of positives coming out of that system. And if we can just dispel let's dispel the myth that the public education has a problem.
Okay.
Because it doesn't. There are obviously things, whether it's public, private, or even private sector, that people may not like. But we do want to embrace the fact that there are good things coming out of their schools, and that there are positive children coming out of the schools, and it's good for our future, the future of our kids.
I thank you for being here. Sorry that we started late and you couldn't get your full participation, and I hope you have a good rest of your
Thank you. I appreciate that, Don. And thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
How do you daughter?
Yes.
One of the other things the BUT had said last month, they had, and Dennis, if you can bring this up, after the BUT voted no confidence last month, Minister of Education Diana Roubain said, I reject the Bermuda Union of Teachers voted no confidence in the leadership of the Permanent Secretary of Education, Valerie Robinson James, and the Commissioner of Education, Kalmar Richards. The recent action by the BUT is unfortunate and reinforces the need for continued direct dialogue, collaboration, and renewed focus on what is best for our children. Do you agree with the BUT coming out and
Definitely not. You know, first of all, I don't know what we achieve by a vote of no confidence. We don't hire, we don't fire. So I don't know what we achieve by that. To think people are not doing a good job, I don't have an issue with that. There are some of us who get in positions and we don't do a good job. But I'm going to say up front, Kalmar Richards, Mrs. Kalmar Richards, is not one of those people. You know, having worked under her at Cedar Bridge Academy, having watched her work at the Berkeley Institute, having watched her work at Somerset Primary, I know what she puts into education. And I know that we're not going to do much better than Mrs. Richards. So I thought that too was an unfortunate situation and terrible timing. You know, Mrs. Richards had just lost her husband not that long ago. And then we seem to be dumping. I just have a problem with that. And, but I want to add that she wasn't the creator of the standards-based grading. She came and found it. Because that happened, I mean, I was teaching at the Berkeley and they were in there with a couple of people attempting to train with standards-based grading. I don't think they really understood themselves what was happening, but I'm happy to hear that Tamika, is it Tamika? Tamisha. Tamisha. Why isn't it Tamika? I always think Tamika when I see Tamisha. I'm happy to hear that she has now is training teachers. But the teachers I spoke with and the principals I've spoken with, after I saw that in the paper, I didn't leave it there. I went and I spoke to people who are living it. And I know several elementary schools or primary schools who have completed everything, who stayed up with it. Those I spoke with. Now, mind you, I haven't spoken with every school,
Right.
but I did speak with several. And I was happy to hear that the principals had worked with their staff and had people work with their staff, and the staff was on board. I talked with staff members who did have a problem with the putting in of grades, Power School. I can't help with that. You know, that's something that we need to upgrade, that takes money. And perhaps we should have done that before we tried. I don't know. Is Power School the problem?
I'm not going to make any comment in reference to standards-based grading or Power School. I will just say this, that whether it's anything in education, if we always approach whatever we're doing by working together and believing in unity and the collective, we can make strides, whether it be in making sure our children come to school fed, whether it's resources, no matter what it is. I think that if we use more of our energy about focusing on what we can do to be solution oriented, because I don't believe anyone in education comes to this with a negative slant, or sometimes it's just difficult when you have different philosophical differences. But I think that if the children are always our mainstay, no matter who it is, and Miss Horton alluded to, you know, her opinion. I have no opinion on any of this, let me just say that, but I just think that no matter what we do in education, whether it's a teacher that I'm having a conversation with about how I think she can grow as a teacher, or the custodian or whatever, if we center all of our decision making around what's best for children, even in the hard decisions, if we can focus it around that, I think we'll find we'll have actually more commonalities than not. And that is my contribution, and that's what I want people to think about when it comes to BPSS. How can we work collectively? Right. These are our kids. How can we put all of our intellectual capacity together? Because you can't do it in one person.
No, you can't.
You need the brain power of everyone. And I kind of think of it as, if we put ourselves in a place where we're willing to extend grace, to believe the best of people, that they have the best intentions, we can find more solutions than we can find deficits.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, part of the thing is, like, I was looking at this and I went back and I tried to count out the number of commissioners of education we've had just this decade. We had Freddie Evans, and then we had Lou Simmons and Lou Matthews were acting in that capacity, and before that we had the ill-fated Dr. Heatley, and you're laughing, Dr. McDonald as well, and then you tie that in with the number of education ministers that we've had since the year 2000. It's probably more than the fingers on my hand.
Too many, yes.
And there's been no stability at the top for direction. So, whereas everyone's going to keep going in the same direction. How much of a problem is that, or is it a problem that we don't have any stability from two of the people that are supposed to be directing the ship?
Well, I think it's a problem when we don't have a set direction, but if you come in, you think it should happen this way, so you move in this direction. And that's what each of the ministers have done. And that's a problem. We can't say, okay, so we change ministers this week, now teachers, now educators, this is what we're going to do. I think it's been too much of that. And the changes, yes, at the top do make a difference. But some needed to be changed, some probably never needed to be there. So, if we're real about it, people got put there for wrong reasons. I think amongst those people who have been in education, there has been only and I speak, not when I say in education, I speak ministers.
Right.
There probably has been one successful educator amongst all ministers. That is a problem.
Yeah,
that is a problem.
I know at one point a lot of people when Dale Butler was at MP, they thought that he should have been education minister at some point because he's, you know, connected with a successful principal at Delwood.
St. George's.
And St. George's.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah, there were people making that call. I think at that time we might have had another successful principal in, well, the only other one in Randy, who was in that position.
Randy Horton.
Yes, but once he was moved, yes, Dale was there. Al James taught for a short while. You know, but those two certainly had long time experience and deep understanding of what the system was about. And I think it would help us to look at those things, and at least then when we talk to teachers, when we talk to the union, we talk from a position of strength of knowledge. But right now, as we saw recently, you can't always wait for the next person to answer the question. You have to know intuitively what's happening. So,
one of the issues that the teachers have been having to deal with is they, when I was speaking to Mike Charles earlier this week, he says there's a reported 65 violent children in our schools. What's the best way to give them an education and yet protect the other students and perhaps the teachers as well?
I don't know about Dr. Charles' particular comments. I can't speak to the 65. I will say, though, with what you mentioned earlier, education is a microcosm of our society. And we cannot throw anyone away. We have to make sure that each one of those pumpkins are taken care of. Normally when a child is in trauma, my experience is that is a direct reflection of potential challenges that they might have outside of the school. They just kind of, you know, filter into our world. I think socially, if we can start to address some of those situations, then it wouldn't only be just incumbent upon the teacher to have to assist that child in that particular way. So I think it's kind of stepping back and not just naming a certain number of children, but saying it's not about 65 children in our school system, it's about 65 children in Bermuda, potentially, right? So we got to think of it more, not so insular, but what can we do as a society to be able to assist families that are in trauma? It could be years of dysfunctional, you know, that is now manifested itself. So my comment to that would be take a step back and say, okay, so if we can name them because we know it's 65, then that means potentially it's 65 families out there. What can we as a country do? Because 65 is a lot in a small country, meaning that, you know, you probably know one of those kids that are in crisis. So if we know that they are in crisis, let's step back as a country and say, how can we put our efforts together to be able to assist these families?
And I agree. And I certainly think that, you know, paraprofessionals play a part, but they have to understand the problem. So we have to train them to understand the problem. Also, you know, I think big brothers and sisters make a huge difference.
Shout out to Power Girl.
So if we have persons attached to these children who show them love and affection and can always help, and there's always somebody who can make a positive difference with these children, and, you know, hopefully help them to socialize better into the community, because we can't throw them away.
Right. You said paraprofessionals, paraeducators. I know that's been an issue, you know, trying to get enough paraprofessionals, educators to help these kids, and it seems like the process to do it seems like it takes too long. Meanwhile, you know, and it's months before we can get somebody in to get them the added help. What can be done to speed up the process?
One thing we have to be careful of, though, is not just putting a warm body there. So we've got to make sure these persons are trained. I don't know what can be done to speed up the process, because I don't know. I know, for instance, we have some situations where we might have at one school a para for a certain thing, let's say you're working with children who were considered to need assistance in school. Then here comes an autistic child who needs help. You can't just move that person over without giving them some training. And I think this has been part of our problem, where we don't have the expert knowledge. And you know, being a paraprofessional is not the easiest thing. So I don't want us to get to the point where we say, you know, just drag this person off the street or that person, to say, we need a body, come on, you know. So that's important, I think, but...
I can't speak about the time. I can't say that I have had the privilege of working with some awesome paraprofessionals. I would like to shout out to my particular paraprofessional because I think she's awesome. I know that just as you have the teachers in the classroom, you do have paraprofessionals that are just as dedicated and committed. And they put a lot on the line in that personal investment that they make with students. So I applaud the work that they do, because they are normally, a lot of times, we don't always, I'll speak for myself, I haven't always celebrated them as much as they should be, and the level of contribution that they make. So, you know, shout out to all of the paras out there, and just know that they are valued, and that they are important, a very important piece of this whole puzzle that we put together.
Exactly, they certainly are. Because a teacher cannot do it alone, especially if we're having children who have real problems. I think also we have to look, you know, like we talked about this society. We have to know where our children come from. And when I say that, you as a teacher may want to say, oh, come on, so-and-so, why haven't you done this? And, you know, then you'll find this child just breaks down. And when you sit and talk to them, you find, hey, she hasn't had breakfast. She didn't get supper last night. She doesn't have mama at home. She's taking care of little people, her brothers and sisters. There's a lot of that. It's a breakdown in the family unit. Right. And so the society must work to fix that.
And teachers have a teachers feel the responsibility to care for these kids as their own children.
Yes.
And they do.
Yes. And
you build up that trust, and you're talking, you know, breakdown in the family. I was substitute teaching last week, and I had a girl in class whose godmother had committed suicide. And, you know, that classroom lesson, for the rest of the day, I didn't follow the teacher's plan, because there was a more pressing issue to deal with, you know, because she was feeling the pain of, you know, losing someone that was near and dear to her, you know.
And this happens to our children, you know, children of, thankfully we haven't had one very lately, but children of murdered fathers and murdered uncles and brothers and this kind of thing, or even the child of the person who has murdered. You know, not only the one who has been murdered. It hurts a lot of families, and this leaves an indelible imprint on our children. And you know, our children suffer as a result, and we don't know how long that suffering will take. They need the psychologists at work. They need psychiatrists often. And I think we have to recognize that we have to step back and help each and every one of our children. We can't throw them away. We have to live with these pumpkins, as she says, for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Tamisha, do you want to have any final thoughts that you want to leave out there?
I just want to say that it's the most noble profession that I have the privilege of serving in. I think that colleagues that put their hand up and say that they too want to serve, I celebrate them. I think that there are a lot of positive things that are happening. I hope that as a country we begin to embrace the change in narrative rather than focusing on what I said earlier, the grocery store conversations, but really coming together and supporting each other and making collective decisions around what's right for children. We are their best hope. They're counting on us to get it right, and every day we have to endeavor to be better, to get it right. So I'm just hoping that parents are on board. I can speak to the colleagues that I know were on board. I'm sure that the ministry is just as on board. It's just that everybody needs to be at the same place at the same time with all of the pieces of the puzzle working together. Because I think we have more in common than
differences.
Not.
Yes, I certainly
and I
agree.
believe everyone's coming from a good place. They want children to be better and have the most optimal experience.
That's right. I mean, as an educator, your focus is ensuring that those children are doing well, and it's our responsibility to think well, to take care of our little people. And we hope that they're getting that at home. We hope. But I would love to see another slight change just in education as a whole. I just have now reached the point where I believe that we need to stop, we need to start some healing. I think take the pressure off our children, especially at the primary level and at the preschool level. But primary level in particular, all the testing, you know, is traumatic. I'd rather we start testing at a later date. I'd rather we do things like speech arts, where we teach these little people to write their own speech and stand up and say it. This builds confidence. And then when they speak to anyone about just about anything, they feel confident enough. And there are some children who do already, but that comes from parenting. Since we know sometimes there's a gap there, that's one of the things we can do to improve, to ensure that children feel good about themselves. A lot of praise, less homework. Because often, I look at some of the homework that comes in and I'm thinking, Mom and Daddy did that. You know, so even projects. I think projects are a good thing in that, like the children did things for Black History Month. I mean, we saw some awesome things in our school. I just wish we would be doing this year round, because the public school system is majority Black. What we see now, though, is the economic differences in public and private. Hopefully we can bridge that gap, but I would love to see our children spend more time at home reading with their parents than actually doing paper and pencil, doing math homework, because if they don't have it and the parents can't assist them, they come back having done 20 problems all wrong. You know, so leave that to the experts.
Okay. All right. Normally, we'll end it there, but today I'm going to have my final word. And I didn't find out till this morning, but somebody decided to spend their birthday with us. Oh, and this is upside down. But I got some cupcakes to share. It's Ellen Kate's birthday today, and she's graciously decided to spend today talking about one of our loves, education. Happy birthday. Help yourself to a hand. I heard from a birdie, though, after I purchased this, your favorite's Kit Kat, so I'm sorry I don't have a Kit Kat for you.
It's a birdie told, because I eat icing, I don't eat cake.
Oh, okay.
I'll have the icing.
Okay.
Happy birthday.
Thank you,
Happy
thank you, that's
birthday.
funny, yes. Trust my daughter to let the world know. The good old Facebook.
Yeah. I'm Don Burgess. Hopefully we helped educate you a little bit about education, and it's a lot of positive things that are happening in our school system. You know, there are things that need to be corrected, but they're not something that's impossible to do. Sure. And I appreciate our guests. Richleen Woolridge was with us earlier. Ellen Kate Horton, Tamisha Darrow, I thank you for your time. I'm Don Burgess. For Burr News and Views, glad you could tune in today, and I hope you have a beautiful afternoon.